Chances are, if you're watching this video, that you care for someone on the spectrum. That is an incredibly important job with many challenges that a lot of people do not even see. Your life probably looks a lot different than other families, and that can be a really difficult thing to come to grips with. I know that you spend so much of your life caring for other people, oftentimes at the expense of yourself. But this video today is just for you. Not for the people that you care for, but for you. You are equally as important, and I'm sure you have not gotten the time or attention or care or concern that you deserve after caring so selflessly for other people in your life. Today, I wanted to share with you some loving reminders and tips for taking care of yourself. It's such an important practice, and my guess is that you don't do it often enough. So if you can, squirrel away in a quiet place or closet for a few minutes and take some time with this video to remind yourself that you are important and you're worth prioritizing. Let's take some time to talk about you. If you're new to the channel, I'm Taylor with Mom on the Spectrum. I have two kids, they're 5 and 8. One of them has been clinically diagnosed with autism. The other one is suspected. Being a girl, she kind of fell through some of the cracks in the testing, which is a topic for another day. But both of my kids have lower support needs, so my life looks a lot different than other families with kids on the spectrum. I realize that, and I realize that many of you are going to have different challenges than I face on a day-to-day basis. All of our struggles and challenges are going to look different, and I think it's an important reminder that we do our best not to compare, because at the end of the day, all we can do is live our own lives, and we have no say over what that looks like for other people. There are some things that I'm going to mention or suggest in this video where you will probably say, oh, there's no way I can do that. You don't know my situation. You don't know what I'm up against every single day. And you know what? You're right. I don't know what you deal with on a daily basis. I'm sure there are so many sacrifices that you make that nobody sees, so many therapy appointments that you manage. There's so much that you do that I do not see and I do not know. You are going to be the best guide for yourself when it comes to implementing any of the suggestions that I share here. But I want to ask that as you listen, you try to listen with the mindset not of why this can't work for your life, but rather, is there any way that I could incorporate this into my life? I think a lot of times as caregivers, we get used to certain patterns of burnout, and that just feels like it has to be a part of our lives because that's all that we know. I want to offer you the hope that it doesn't have to be like that. I do think it's probably pretty normal to have those periods as someone who cares for kids on the spectrum, but I do have hope and truly believe that there are patterns that we can implement in our life to make burnout less frequent, or at least to be able to find more moments of joy and lightheartedness. So right off the bat, I want to say that it's so important to listen to your body's needs. You may have gotten used to suppressing those, but it's important to remember that our body does give us feedback all day, every day about what we need. That might be hydration or rest or a creative outlet or a friend, but our body is giving us these cues, and many times caregivers are really good at silencing these cues. So today I want you to remind yourself that this is happening all throughout the day. Even just now, let's take 10 seconds, and I just want you to focus on your body. It might be helpful just to put your feet flat on the floor and just take a few deep breaths, and I just want you to be aware of how your body feels. You might notice a certain area where you're holding tension or tightness. Let's just take 10 seconds. We're just going to breathe together and just listen to your body. What always amazes me is that even after doing something simple like that for 10 seconds, it brings a little bit more energy and lightness into my body. Whatever came up for you during that time, your brain might have been going 1,000 miles an hour and telling you there's so many other things that you could be doing right now. Just a reminder, prioritizing your self-care and healing is the most important thing that you can do for yourself. Whatever your body was saying, if there was tension in your back, your shoulder, if anger came up, make a note of it. We don't have to do anything about it right now. And many times when we're caring for other people, we can't act on what our body is telling us in that moment. But it's important, even if we can't act on it, to acknowledge it. That could just be saying it out loud. That could be texting a friend if something comes up like, hey, it just hit me that I haven't seen you in a while. Just wanted to connect and say hi. So you might not be able to fully take care of that need in that moment. You might not be able to go grab coffee with that friend, but is there one step that you can take towards at least acknowledging the need that your body is communicating? It might even be just adding it to your to-do list. For example, the other day I remembered that I just wasn't drinking enough water, and part of it was due to the fact that I didn't want to clean out my huge water bottle because there's so many parts. So I just added it to my list, clean out that water bottle. That was one step that I could take in listening to my body's needs. The next thing that I want to mention that is so important is accepting the feelings that you have. I think as a caregiver of kids on the spectrum, it can be really easy to have feelings of anger, of frustration, maybe even of resentment, of longing, wondering what your life would have looked like in a different situation. I want to give you permission to feel those things and to acknowledge them fully. There's all of this emerging science that's showing that we have to fully feel an emotion before it can dislodge. So emotions become kind of stuck in our bodies until they're fully expressed. So if you have these feelings in your body and you've been pushing them down, they're only going to stay there and get stronger until they're allowed to be fully felt and realized. That can be kind of scary because what is it going to look like to fully feel those feelings? Sometimes we don't get to choose when we feel those feelings, right? Sometimes they come up very unexpectedly. But one thing that I have been learning is that emotions, they do have a start and an end. So if you start crying, you're not going to cry forever. You will eventually stop crying, right? So my invitation to you is to embrace those hard feelings. I know it can be really hard to intentionally accept uncomfortable feelings, but I want to remind you that I think the way forward and the way to get through those tough feelings is to actually allow ourselves to experience them. Now, like I said, we don't always get to choose when these emotions come up. Sometimes they come up at really inopportune times. But one way that you can help start the process is by journaling. You might be laughing and thinking, when am I going to have the time to do that? Again, do your best to reframe, how could I implement this? Just a quick few minutes of journaling at the start or end of every day to write down what you're feeling in your body and any emotions that might be coming up. That's a great start to working through any of those negative emotions that might be stuck in your body. And this is a regular practice. So once you deal with these emotions, it's likely that they might come up again. So getting into the habit of practicing emotional awareness is really key for your overall longevity and well-being. Journaling can also be a really great way to be completely honest. So if I were to guess, I would say that you probably hold back from sharing everything that you feel because you probably feel some pretty intense emotions that might bring about some shame or guilt to fully admit. Don't be scared of those emotions. They need to be fully felt and realized by you so that you can process them and heal from them. Writing out your feelings can be a safe way to more fully accept and experience those emotions. It might be easier to write something on paper than to tell a friend face to face the depth of a certain feeling or emotion that you might be experiencing. You can always throw away the piece of paper that you're writing on after you get it all out. And I think you might be surprised if you haven't done this before, just how much a simple practice like writing down your feelings can actually help you move forward. I mentioned this a little bit in the beginning, but another reminder is to recognize when you find yourself comparing your life to other people's lives. Comparison in general is not productive and many times can lead to more negative feelings. So when you find yourself making comparisons, which is totally normal, just gently acknowledge that you're doing that, and that in itself can help you become more mindful of how often you do that. Start by gently acknowledging when you're comparing, and then see if you can redirect your focus to something you're grateful for. Sometimes those things you're grateful for can be hard to come by. It can be something small, it doesn't matter what it is. Just turning your mind towards something you're grateful for can make a big difference in those types of situations. As we move into some more concrete tips for taking care of ourselves, I wanted to make sure that I spent plenty of time on the subject of childcare. Now, I know this is going to vary vastly depending on the person listening to this, but finding a form of childcare that can offer you any brief period of time for you to rest and take care of yourself is so necessary and so worth it. I know there are probably some insurmountable challenges here for many of you because it can be very hard to find care for someone with special needs. Here are some suggestions. Maybe you've tried all of it, but please know I feel like it's worth revisiting this topic as your kids grow older to see if maybe it has become a possibility now, because even just an hour of time to yourself when you spend all of your time caring for someone else can make a truly huge difference in your life. Some options may include seeking out churches that offer childcare. There might be a gym in your area that offers childcare where you could get a workout in and drop your kids off. I've actually found that when I've looked into this in our area, we do live in a bigger city, I've been surprised to find that more people have experience with special needs than I originally thought. And again, that's going to vary greatly depending on where you're at, but there are people who know how to care for kids on the spectrum. So we can look into churches, we can look into gyms, obviously different school programs that might be available in your area. You might reach out to different neighbors in your area and see if you could do like a childcare swap where you watch their kids once a week or once a month and they return the favor. You can also seek out groups like on Facebook. I know I'm a part of a community for autistic parents in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. That's a great way to connect with other parents who understand more of the situations that you find yourself in, and they may have more grace and compassion for play dates and birthday parties and events that are going to look very different for kids on the spectrum versus kids who aren't on the spectrum. And then also, I know for some of us, it might be really hard asking for help. I feel like that's kind of the nature of caregivers, is that it's hard to ask other people for help. If you haven't reached out to your friends and family for help watching your kids at some point, it is okay to express that need, and it's okay to be very honest about how big of a need it is. It is totally okay to say to a friend or family member, I could really use some help in this area. Would you be able to watch the kids for this amount of time and we could try it once and see how it goes? Communication is important. It's okay to be honest about your needs, and it is really okay to ask for help. Now, here's a few more simple, concrete tips to make sure that you're incorporating in your life on a daily basis. Number one, you want to make sure that you are drinking water. It can be really difficult to remember important things like this when we're caring for somebody else all day long. Drinking enough water, that act alone can benefit your overall health tremendously. A really good goal to aim for is to drink half of your body weight in ounces of water every day. So if you weigh 200 pounds, try to drink 100 ounces of water every day. It might also be really helpful to make sure you're taking a daily multivitamin, because I know sometimes our nutritional needs go by the wayside whenever we're trying to get other mouths fed. Kind of going along with the Facebook groups I mentioned earlier, make sure you're seeking out a community of friends who can understand what you're going through. The cool thing about this day and age is that there are many ways to connect to other people like that digitally. If you have any suggestions of groups like that for other people to join, I would love it if you could share in the comments any groups that you might be a part of. But it is so important to connect regularly with other people, even if it isn't in person, who can understand your struggles, people that you can share your frustrations to, and reconnect with other people your age. I also mentioned this earlier, but the practice of journaling and gratitude, it might sound simple and cheesy, but there really have been numerous studies done on the benefits of gratitude and how it can vastly improve your overall well-being and state of mind. It can be as simple as writing down 3 things that you're grateful for at the beginning or end of every day. I actually had a little project that I did a few years ago where I kept popsicle sticks in a little pail on my nightstand, and every night when I got in bed, I would write one thing I was grateful for on a popsicle stick, and I would group them based on the year, and they're really fun to go back and look at from time to time. Another thing, I know what you're gonna say, but therapy is so helpful and so needed for caregivers. I know, there's not enough time, there's not enough money. If you haven't looked into it, this would be a great thing to start planning for. If you can't do it today, maybe down the line. There's so many different options now. There's text therapy. Talkspace is an online text therapy that you can do anytime, any place. You also want to make sure that you've looked into any insurance benefits you may have to see what might be covered under your insurance plan in terms of mental health and counseling. So many people are doing telehealth these days where you don't even have to leave your house, and you might be able to schedule therapy sessions in the cracks between other things that you're doing during the day. Also, regulating your nervous system. That might sound kind of intense and overwhelming. That can be done with simple things like yoga. Yoga is something that could actually really benefit your kid on the spectrum as well. This might be something that you could do together. There are plenty of YouTube channels that feature things like yoga for kids. There might even be yoga for caregivers. You might want to check out Yoga with Adriene. She's my all-time favorite yoga YouTuber. She's got so many great self-care videos and yoga practices that you can watch at any time. But doing something like yoga or even going for a walk, those types of things where you're intentionally breathing and reconnecting with your body or nature, those are great ways to rebalance your nervous system, which is something that we need to make sure that we're prioritizing each and every day. Also, learning how to embrace failure as an opportunity to grow. I know it can be so hard to fail, but as someone with kids on the spectrum, I feel like it's just kind of part of the journey because we're learning how to care for people who have needs that can change every day. So we're going to fail, we're going to make mistakes. And the more we can view those mistakes and failures with compassion and as a learning opportunity, the easier it gets to move through those challenges and come out stronger on the other side. It's also a great opportunity to not take ourselves so seriously. It's really great to laugh. That's something that's really, really hard for me to do, is to laugh at myself. But I do love laughing. So something that I really love to do to unwind is watch stand-up comedy. That's something that almost always makes me laugh out loud. And that's another really great way to regulate your nervous system, is through laughter. So make sure that you're finding opportunities to laugh. Also, remind yourself to take things one step at a time. I know it might feel daunting to maybe manage all of the therapies that you're responsible for managing for your child. It's kind of like, if you've ever heard that adage or whatever it's called, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. It might seem like you have this huge, overwhelming list of responsibilities that you have no idea how to tackle. The only thing that we can do is one thing at a time, one baby step at a time. And that practice repeats each and every day. So whenever you feel your mind racing and trying to remember all the things that you need to do and all of the places that you need to be, what is the next step? Focus on that. Breathe. Allow yourself to be human. Practice self-compassion. And remember that you're enough. I know it probably doesn't feel like that most days, but you are. You're enough. You're a whole person. You can only give so much. And what you do give is a gift. It's a treasure. It's making the world a more beautiful place. You're creating a safe space for someone else to grow and flourish and thrive. And that's something that you should be really, really proud of. I want to make sure that you relieve yourself of any guilt or shame associated with having a kid on the spectrum. I know that might be easier said than done, but many of you have said that it has been hard for you to wrap your mind around the fact that you have a kid on the spectrum. There might be some guilt associated with that, a feeling of, did I do this? Am I the one who brought this on them? We can't go down those ways of thinking. An autistic kid is nothing to feel guilt or shame about. They bring so much light and joy into the world, and the fact that you got to be a part of that is a gift in itself. So whenever those feelings of guilt and shame come up, be honest about them. Don't try to stuff them down. Acknowledge that they're there, and remind yourself of the beautiful gifts that are associated with this beautiful person that you have brought into the world. Also, there are so many different ways to live life. Just because yours looks different, it doesn't mean it's wrong or less than. It's just your way of life. You get to define what that looks like. You can alter it. You can make changes. You can try different ways of doing things. It's okay to have a life that looks totally different than other people's and to live it on different terms with different timelines. And that's a beautiful thing. Accept that every single day. It's also important to remember that growth is not linear. So you might find that some days you feel a lot of progress towards self-care and contentment and finding peace. And then the next day you feel like an alien who has never known peace before in your life. That is okay. Growth is not linear. It's totally normal to have peaks and valleys. Deep breath, one thing at a time, self-compassion, listen to your body. And remember that it takes time to change different patterns. It takes time to create new behaviors and new habits in your life. So if you try to implement drinking enough water into your routine every day and it doesn't go as planned, give yourself grace. It might take a while to establish that habit. I think actually the last I've read is that it takes about 30 to 45 days to cement a new habit in your life. So consistency is key, and it might not happen every single day, but gradually you can start to implement more of these self-care practices into your life. Lastly, one of my favorite mantras to live by is that I truly believe you are doing the best that you can with the resources that you have. Whatever that looks like in this moment, the amount of time, energy, love, compassion, money that you have, you are doing the best that you can. You really are. I truly believe that with every fiber of my being. Give yourself grace. You are a superhero. You deserve all the love and compassion and gratitude in the world. I am sorry that you probably don't get that as much as you deserve, but just know that you're not alone. You are so important to this world. Your self-care and health is so important to this world. And I hope that this video was helpful in suggesting maybe a few ways that you can start to implement more self-care into your daily routine. But just know you're worth it. I know there's so much you do that goes unseen, but you're beautiful and needed and such a gift. One step at a time, breath by breath. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing in this world. My heart goes out to you. I'm grateful for the work you're doing, and I'm so glad you took the time to watch this for yourself today. Feel free to come back here whenever you need another reminder of how awesome you are. Thanks for watching, and I will see y'all in the next video. Bye.